Mr. Van Drew, sir.
Thank you, Chairman, and Mr. Cameron and Ms. Flanagan, thank you for being here and thank you for your work. The Migratory Bird Treaty Act, enacted in 1918, implements treaties between the United States and Canada, Mexico, Japan, and Russia for the protection of migratory birds. These treaties prohibited the taking, possession, import, export, transportation, sale, or trade of any migratory bird or its parts, nests, or eggs. The Migratory Bird Treaty Act has protected more than 1,000 species of migratory birds from destructive practices and industrial activities. I know in my district, it is extremely important that migratory birds obviously do well, not only because of our environmental responsibility, because of our general responsibilities, but also because, quite frankly, of the economics of it. Some people don't realize just how many bird watchers there are in the world and in the country, but it is amazing to see in the southern part of New Jersey where I am, the people that come literally from all over the world to see some of these migratory birds. They really represent not only as I said, an environmental investment, but actually an economic investment. Last year, the Department of Interior issued a solicitor's opinion, and it proposed a rule to reinterpret the Migratory Bird Treaty Act to no longer prohibit the unintentional killing of birds. It's known as incidental take. And it's by energy companies usually that this happens, and some others. For example, after the 2010 Deepwater Horizon disaster in the Gulf of Mexico, BP was required to pay $100 million in fines under the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, incidental take. Provision for killing more than 1 million birds. The fines went towards wetland and migratory bird conservation. And I think we can all agree that wetland and bird conservation was much needed following such a huge and tremendous disaster. However, the Department of Interior has decided to limit the scope of the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, reverse progress by both Republican and Democratic administrations in a bipartisan way in minimizing bird deaths, and undermines international obligations under a number of bilateral migratory bird treaties. Former senior DOI officials have strongly opposed this reversal. Any reason why the department hasn't responded to those former senior officials' concerns?
Congressman, I think that's probably a better question for the Fish and Wildlife Service. I'm happy to bring it back to them. To be honest, I'm only peripherally aware of that issue. I've read about it in the press, but I'd rather give you more substantive response by having the Fish and Wildlife Service respond for the record.
Okay, and that's fine, and certainly I have a communication with them as well, but we should know and understand that it's the Department of Interior who has decided to limit the scope. I mean, they have made the decision. It is also the Department of Interior that has strongly opposed their officials, their former officials that have opposed the reversal, and it's the Department of Interior who hasn't responded to those DOI officials' concerns. So I would also appreciate a response on behalf of the DOI, because this is all generated, this particular piece of it, from the DOI. Do you consult with the Fish and Wildlife experts on this when you did this?
I wasn't involved in that decision. I can tell you, I know there were conversations going on between the Fish and Wildlife Service and various folks at the departmental level, but I was not directly involved, so I can't tell you who talked to whom and what the subject matter was.
Do you have a sense, do you feel that this undercuts international treaty obligations that have existed for, as I said, literally since 1918?
Sir, that's a legal question way above my pay grade, and I'm not an attorney, so I wouldn't hazard to guess to give you an answer for that.
I'm going to get one answer out of here. Why shouldn't companies be required to use best practices to reduce the likelihood of incidental take? And you're familiar with incidental take, correct? What it is? Yep.
Yeah.
And in any industry, even, for example, in the fishing industry, best practices are always utilized to minimize any incidental take that'll happen. It can happen, but we should ensure that it doesn't happen as much as possible.
Congressman, I definitely agree with you that it would be a good idea to always and everywhere apply best practices, including reduction of incidental take. Whether it should be a regulatory requirement, I think, is a separate question. But as a general rule, we ought to do as little damage as we possibly can accidentally to any resources.
I love some of those answers. Thank you.